Day 13 does not enter a Libra's life as a number. It arrives as a feeling, a subtle shift in the air, vague, hard to name, but strong enough to slow your steps, right in the middle of days that once felt familiar. Maybe you wake up earlier than usual, with no clear reason why. Maybe you pause in the middle of a room and feel your chest soften slightly, as if something is waiting to be noticed. Not fear, not exactly worry, just something unfamiliar, like the sky holding its breath for too long before the rain finally comes. Libra, you are used to balancing everything. You've spent years easing tension, keeping the peace, placing other people's needs right beside your own emotions. But now, your body begins to speak before logic has a chance to interrupt. You may notice yourself more sensitive to the way someone looks at you, to a familiar voice that suddenly sounds different, to small details you once brushed past without thinking. Not because you've grown weaker, but because you're listening more deeply. There are days when the universe doesn't speak through grand signs. It whispers. It barely touches. It sends subtle signals felt only by those who know how to be still. This is one of those days. Everything around you seems to slow down, while something inside you does the opposite. Your intuition sharpens. Old thoughts lose their authority. Questions you once avoided begin to surface quietly. Am I really okay? Am I living in alignment with my values? And what might be waiting ahead? If I finally choose to look at the truth, Libra, if you feel slightly unsettled, please don't turn against yourself. Unease is not always a sign of disorder. Sometimes it's the first sign of awakening. It's like the moment before light slips through a narrow crack in the door. Not enough to illuminate the whole room, but enough to remind you there is a wider world outside, more honest, and possibly kinder to you. The energy of this day does not come to throw you off balance. It comes to remind you that real balance begins with honesty toward your own feelings. You may not fully understand yet why you feel this way, and that's okay. Not every message needs to be decoded immediately. Some things only need to be acknowledged, allowed to exist, trusted to reveal themselves in time. What matters is this: you are here. You are feeling. You are fully present in this moment. And that presence alone is an act of quiet courage. Trust that nothing arrives in your life by accident. Every sensation, every instinct, every subtle vibration today carries a reason. You don't need to rush toward answers. Just open your chest, slow your breathing, and allow yourself to listen. Because sometimes it is precisely in that silence that something deeply important is already on its way, gently approaching, knocking on your life, in a language only you can understand. And then, the Spario. Right at the moment you believe life is still moving within its familiar rhythm, a sign appears. Not loudly, not with warning. It slips in gently, the way afternoon light slides through a curtain, without asking permission. A brief vibration, a piece of information that shows up, then stays still. A passing remark, spoken casually in the middle of an ordinary conversation. Everything seems normal until you realize you are not. There is a very specific moment when you receive it. Not shock, not exactly surprise. It feels more like someone has touched a tightly stretched string inside you. You might read more slowly or fall silent for a few seconds. Time stretches just enough for you to hear your own heartbeat clearly, just enough to realize that what arrived did not only carry information, but carried a reminder that something in your life is asking to be looked at more honestly. Libra is used to keeping things balanced. You've learned how to smile, even when your heart is full of questions. You know how to soften a room, how to choose your words. so no one gets hurt. But in this moment, those skills no longer help you avoid what you feel. Because what has touched you is not on the surface. It goes straight to the place you usually keep hidden, where questions live that have never been fully answered. You may realize someone is not who you once believed they were, not because they changed overnight, but because you are seeing them clearly for the first time. You may sense the path you're on is not as solid as it once appeared. Or perhaps what unsettles you most is a new awareness of yourself, of what you've accepted for too long, of the things you once convinced yourself were enough, were fine, were safe. The message doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need detailed explanation. Its weight lives somewhere else. It lives in the quiet ache that remains after everything has been read, heard, spoken. A feeling that won't allow you to return easily to your old way of thinking. A feeling that makes the space around you grow still, so you can finally hear the voice inside you more clearly. You may not share this with anyone. You may continue your routines, your work, your laughter. But deep within you, a gear has begun to turn. You start asking different questions. No longer asking how to keep everything calm, but how to make everything true. No longer asking what others expect from you, but what you are truly asking of your own life. And what's precious here is that there is no pressure to decide anything right now. No demand for an immediate response. Everything is placed in your hands with a deep sense of trust. Trust that you are mature enough to listen, calm enough to observe, kind enough to yourself, to not rush into denying what is revealing itself. This moment feels like standing at a crossroads, without needing to walk yet, just standing, breathing, feeling what within you wants protection, what wants change, and what has reached the moment where it can be released gently, without resentment, without regret. Because when a sign like this appears in a Libra's life, it doesn't come to create meaningless disruption. It comes as an invitation to live more truthfully with your own values. And when you allow yourself to listen fully, you begin to realize that this very moment is quietly laying the foundation for choices that will later become more important, more meaningful, and far more compassionate toward yourself. And as the echo of that signal slowly settles, a strange feeling begins to take shape inside you. Not confusion, not fear. It's the feeling of recognition. Like looking at a painting you've seen for years and suddenly noticing one small brushstroke, one subtle detail that changes the way you understand the entire image. This truth does not arrive as a surprise. In reality, it has been there for a long time. It appeared in brief, faint moments when something didn't feel right and you quietly reassured yourself that you were just overthinking. It passed through restless nights when a thought surfaced for a second, then was gently pushed away because you didn't want to disturb the fragile balance you were trying so hard to maintain. Libra has a rare gift. You can sense misalignment when it's still very small, barely visible, but because of that gift, you often choose silence. You choose waiting. You choose believing that if you are patient enough, everything will eventually fall back into place. This time, however, the truth no longer agrees to stay at the edges. It steps forward quietly, but with certainty, like light entering a room that has been closed for far too long. It doesn't overwhelm you. It doesn't break you. It helps you understand. You understand why certain relationships have always felt incomplete, even when everything looked fine on the surface. You understand why some plans seem to stretch on endlessly, never quite moving forward. no matter how much effort you give. You understand why, deep inside, you've carried the feeling that you were waiting for something that hadn't arrived yet, even while life around you continued as usual. This truth is not here to accuse you. It carries no judgment. It simply stands there, clear and honest, so you no longer have to wonder whether you were imagining things. And when you allow yourself to look at it directly, a very different sensation appears. Relief, not because everything is suddenly solved, but because you no longer have to strain yourself, holding unanswered questions inside. You may realize how much you've accepted in silence. You may see clearly that someone never truly walked beside you, even though you slowed your pace, so they could keep up. Or perhaps you understand that you stayed too long in a state that no longer nourished you. None of this is new. It simply hasn't been fully acknowledged. Until now, Libra, this truth does not come to take away your peace. It comes to return a different kind of peace. A deeper one, a steadier one. A peace no longer built on avoidance or compromise with yourself, but on clarity. When you finally see that missing piece, everything that once confused you begins to make sense. The long silences, the unclear crossroads, the unnamed feelings, none of it was meaningless. And in that moment, you may realize something important. You were never weak for sensing this all along. On the contrary, it shows how deeply connected you've always been to your inner world. Only now, you feel safe enough to trust that connection, mature enough to understand that truth, even when it arrives late, is still a necessary gift, a gift that allows you to keep moving forward with greater steadiness. There is no need to rush, to do anything with this truth. Just let it be there, seen, acknowledged, because within that acknowledgement, another door inside you quietly opens. A door leading away from long-standing uncertainty, toward the ability to choose, with clarity, with self-respect. And as you stand in this new inner space, you can feel it clearly. You are moving closer to a true state of balance, one where nothing needs to be hidden anymore. And once the truth has been seen, one, even if only partially, what matters most right now is not what you do next, but how you hold yourself. In this moment, there is an ancient kind of wisdom that quietly lives within life itself. Not every door that opens is meant to be walked through immediately. Some doors only need to be recognized, so you know you are no longer trapped inside a single room. The energy of this day carries a message that is gentle, yet unmistakably clear. Don't rush. Don't let emotion guide your hands faster than your heart. Don't allow an old reflex to decide for you what took years of awareness to learn. Libra understands the value of consideration better than most. But this time, consideration is not about choosing what is right or wrong. It's about giving yourself enough space to breathe, enough space to fully feel what is unfolding inside you. You may feel a strong urge to respond immediately, to explain, to clarify, to regain a sense of control before things move too far ahead. That impulse is human. But beneath that urgency, there is something else asking to be heard. A slower rhythm, a pause, like standing before calm water, and knowing that if you stir it too soon, the reflection will disappear. Libra, your strength in this moment does not live in the answer you give. It lives in the silence you choose to keep. Silence is not weakness. Silence is confidence. It's the moment you trust that your worth is not measured by how quickly you react, but by how honestly you choose. When you allow everything to settle, certain truths reveal themselves naturally, without interrogation, without force. In that pause, you may begin to see more clearly who truly respects your boundaries, who is patient enough to wait until you are ready, and who has simply grown accustomed to you always being the one who yields. These observations don't need to be announced. They only need to be noticed. Each time you acknowledge the truth, without judgment, you gently reclaim authorship over your own life. This is also the moment to return to your core values, the ones that were once overshadowed by the need to keep others comfortable. You don't need to be right in everyone's eyes. You only need to be right with yourself. And to do that, you need time. Time for emotions to pass. Time for the mind to quiet. Time for intuition to speak without being interrupted by fear or old habits. Something beautiful happens when you choose not to react immediately. You begin to hear yourself more clearly. You start to distinguish between passing emotions and what truly matters. You realize that not every invitation needs to be accepted. Not every situation requires immediate resolution. And in that slower choosing, you give yourself a powerful gift, the gift of self-respect and inner freedom. This moment does not ask you to be strong in a loud way. It only asks you to be steady enough not to be pulled away, to trust that even if you don't act right now, life is still listening. And as you stand in that clear awareness, a new direction begins to form quietly, not forced, not rushed, simply waiting for the moment you are ready to step forward with a heart that is softened and a mind that can finally see the road ahead with greater clarity. As your breathing slows and calm gradually returns to its place, another awareness begins to rise into focus. Not loudly, not with pressure, just a very real sense that what has just happened did not only touch your emotions, but reach the foundation on which you are standing. The parts of life tied to stability, to values, to how you sustain your life day after day. Libra begins to look at everything differently now, more deeply, more realistically, as if a thin layer of mist that lingered for so long is finally beginning to lift. You may realize this story connects to your work, the path you are walking, or the way you use your energy to create value in the world. Not necessarily a specific number, not necessarily money, sitting clearly in front of you. Sometimes it shows up as the feeling of being undervalued, sometimes as the realization that the effort you give is no longer being met in equal measure, and sometimes it appears as a new door opening slightly, quietly asking whether you are ready to step beyond the familiar safety you've grown used to. Libra has always had a tendency to give generously. You give kindness, patience, support, at times, even your time and energy without keeping score. But now, it feels as though the universe has placed a different mirror in your hands. Not to blame you, but to help you see clearly. Are you giving from love or from fear of losing approval? Are you staying because you truly believe, or because you haven't yet trusted, that you deserve something better? These questions are not easy, but they are necessary. A gentle yet profound truth begins to surface. Your value is not measured by how much you sacrifice. It is measured by how much you respect yourself. Money, work, opportunity, these are only outer expressions of an inner current. When you begin to assess yourself with fairness and honesty, the world around you slowly adjusts to reflect that truth back to you. Not immediately, but inevitably. This moment may cause you to revisit old decisions with a different lens. Choices made when you did not fully trust your own worth, moments when you accepted less than you deserved, just to keep things calm. And now, as you look back, it is not to regret, but to understand that you did the best you could with what you knew at the time, and to understand that you are fully allowed to choose differently now. What matters most is not how much you earn or what position you hold, but the mindset with which you move forward. When you begin to honor your energy, you naturally choose environments that honor you in return. When you stop diminishing your worth to fit the situation itself begins to change. This is not a struggle. It is a subtle recalibration, beginning quietly from within. Libra, this moment does not ask you to make a major decision right away. It simply invites you to look again at how you give and how you receive, to notice what leaves you feeling nourished and what leaves you depleted. And from there, in small, deliberate steps, you begin choosing again, choosing fairness toward yourself, choosing values that sustain you long-term over short-lived compromises. As you allow yourself to enter this new awareness, you will feel a different kind of steadiness forming. Not loud, not performative, but deeply real. A steadiness that comes from knowing who you are, what you deserve, and that you no longer need to trade yourself for a sense of safety. And within that steadiness, a new direction begins to open quietly. A place where abundance is not measured only by material gain, but by the calm assurance that comes from living in alignment with your true values. And from that subtle recalibration, another movement begins to form inside you. No one can see it clearly, not even those closest to you, but you can feel it. It's like opening a window in a room that's been closed for a very long time. Fresh air enters quietly. No noise, no disruption, just enough to make everything inside easier to breathe. After this moment, Libra no longer thinks in the old way, not because you are forcing yourself to change, but because your perspective has shifted naturally. You begin to recognize that your energy is finite. Before, you may have scattered it across too many situations, too many people, too many expectations that were never truly yours. You once believed that keeping the peace meant enduring. That balance meant everyone else had to be satisfied. But now, a new understanding quietly takes root. You can feel more clearly what truly nourishes you and what has been slowly draining you, piece by piece. This distinction doesn't come from sharp reasoning. It comes from a deep, honest feeling inside, a feeling that cannot be denied. Things that once kept you hesitating for a long time suddenly become clear. There is less inner argument, fewer exhausting mental loops. You no longer need to ask yourself whether to keep pushing or finally stop. The answer arrives in stillness, gentle, yet firm. And when you accept that answer, you feel an invisible weight being set down. As if, for the first time in a long journey, you've allowed yourself to take a full, deep breath. Libra, this change does not make you cold or distant. On the contrary, it makes you kinder to yourself and therefore more genuine with others. You begin to understand that letting go is not failure. Letting go is the act of someone who has learned to respect their own limits. Some connections don't need to be cut. They simply no longer need to sit at the center of your life. Some roles you've carried for too long can finally be set down without apology. In this new inner space, you begin to hear your own voice more clearly, not the voice of obligation, not the voice of expectation, but the voice of true desire. You start asking, what makes you feel alive? What makes you feel at peace? What makes you feel that you are moving in the right direction? These questions don't demand immediate answers. They only need to exist, like small lights, guiding the road ahead. The balance Libra has always searched for is no longer a fragile exchange between giving and enduring. It becomes something deeper, a state where you stand firmly in your own values without comparison, without the need to prove anything. You learn that saying no does not make you less kind. Choosing yourself does not make you selfish. In fact, when you live in alignment with your own energy, you radiate a quiet stability outward, a stability others can feel, even when you say nothing at all. You may not yet have words for this transformation. You may only notice that you feel calmer around things that once unsettled you, but that calm is the clearest sign of all. It tells you that you are entering a very quiet form of maturity, a place where you are no longer pulled back and forth by choices that no longer fit. Everything begins to rearrange itself into a new order, not forced, not rushed, just right. And as you stand in this inner space, you begin to sense that you are preparing for something more lasting, not through strain, not through effort, but through permission. Permission to be selective, permission to release gently, permission to trust. That real balance always begins within and then moves outward, guiding you toward what truly aligns with the person you are becoming. And as that calm settles more firmly within you, something else begins to happen, very quietly, almost without a sound. Not loss, not collapse. It's the feeling of a circle gently closing after it has completed its purpose. Like an afternoon slowly reaching the end of the day. Not sad, just softening, making room for the gentle glow of evening light. Libra may begin to notice that some things have stayed in your life for too long. Not because they were bad, but because they no longer nourish you. A relationship that once mattered deeply, that taught you how to love, how to be patient, now no longer moves in rhythm with the person you are becoming. An old belief that once made you feel safe has quietly turned into a limitation. A path that was once the right choice no longer leads where you want to go. None of these things are wrong. They have simply completed their role. And the moment you realize this, does not carry the pain you once feared. Instead, it brings a strange sense of relief, like setting down a suitcase you've been carrying for a very long time. Not because it was too heavy, but because you no longer need to carry it. You may pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and notice that your shoulders feel lighter, your steps more grounded. Libra, closure does not mean denial. You don't need to erase memories. You don't need to blame yourself for staying as long as you did. Every phase has its reason for existing. Every connection brings a lesson, an experience, a piece of who you are today. And when you allow a cycle to end with respect, you give yourself a profound gift. The gift of maturity without bitterness. You may not say a clear goodbye to everything. Some things simply fall behind. As you move forward, some relationships change shape. They may no longer be close, but they remain, held gently with gratitude. And some beliefs slip away quietly, without announcement, leaving behind a space just wide enough for something new to enter. That space is not frightening. It's like the pause between two breaths. If you don't rush to fill it, you can feel life moving softly within it. You begin to notice that you are no longer pulled back into old stories Every time something happens, you no longer react. From wounds that have already healed, you begin to respond. From who you are now, more grounded, more clear, kinder to yourself. There is a lightness that appears when a cycle closes at the right time. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom from constantly proving, from enduring, from convincing yourself you are fine, when deep down, you are not. You don't need to explain this choice to everyone. What truly belongs to you will understand, and what no longer fits, sooner or later, will leave in its own way. Libra begins to walk forward with less baggage, yet not empty. Instead, you carry clarity, composure, and a renewed trust in your own ability to navigate life. You understand now that closure is not an ending. It is a necessary pause, a quiet rest that allows life to shift into a new melody, deeper, more harmonious. And as you stand in this very still moment, one thing becomes clear. You are no longer trapped in old loops. You have stepped out, not in a rush, not in resistance, but through understanding and respect for the path you have already walked. And it is precisely this gentle closing that opens a new space ahead, a space where the past is no longer a burden you carry, but a solid foundation from which you can welcome what truly belongs with you next, as it quietly, patiently finds its way toward you. And as the space ahead begins to feel more open, as what no longer belongs has been set down with respect, something truly important comes into focus, not from the outside, not from anyone else's advice, but from the quietest place within you, your intuition, the part of you that has always been there, loyal, patient, waiting for the moment you became still enough to listen. This day does not arrive to test you through fear. It comes to confirm what you have felt for a long time. That first feeling in your chest when something happens is not accidental. It is not vague guessing. It is the result of lived experience, of quiet observation, of countless moments. You notice details your conscious mind didn't yet have words for. Libra's intuition is never loud. It does not rush you. It simply rests a gentle hand on your shoulder and reminds you that it's time to trust yourself more. You may realize that deep down, you already know what needs to be done, what needs to stay, and what needs to be released. Before, you may have doubted that inner knowing because you were used to prioritizing outer harmony over inner truth. But now, something has shifted. You understand that listening to intuition is not impulsive action. It is clarity, a quiet partnership between deep feeling and the maturity you've earned over time. Libra, what you are being reminded of here is not to rush into decisions. It is to trust your own rhythm. When a choice feels lighter, even if the entire path is not yet visible, that is a sign of alignment. When something requires constant self-convincing, endurance, and emotional strain just to keep balance, that is your cue to pause and listen more closely. Intuition does not speak in logic. It speaks in ease or unease. Clearly, the message arriving on this day is not meant to confuse you. It's like a small lamp switching on in the fog. It doesn't light the entire journey, but it shows you the very next step. And if you walk that way, step by step, slowly, with awareness, you will not lose your way. You don't need all the answers right now. You only need to trust that you are moving in the right direction. When you honor what feels true, there is a quiet strength. In trusting your intuition, it frees you from being pulled by outside noise. It releases you from comparing your path to anyone else's. It guides you toward choices that don't demand attention, but last. And it is that steadiness that builds a future you can stand firmly in, not through constant effort, but through natural alignment. When you allow yourself to trust this inner guidance, you offer others a beautiful lesson as well. The lesson of slowing down, to listen inward, of not trading inner peace for external approval, of understanding that everyone carries their own compass. And when they dare to trust it, life begins to move with greater harmony, not just for them, but for those around them. And then, as everything settles, as you stand still, in this new clarity, something gentle becomes obvious. You no longer need to chase signs. You no longer need to seek validation outside yourself. You have become someone who can guide your own life with awareness, with kindness toward yourself, with deep trust in your inner voice. Day 13 will pass like any other day, but what it leaves behind will not. It leaves you with a stronger connection to yourself, a peace that doesn't need to be proven, and a quiet yet powerful trust that from this moment forward, every choice you make can begin from the truest place within you. And that is how Libra steps into the future, not rushing, not afraid, simply trusting that you are walking the path meant for you.